All right. So first of all, welcome to Koali Days Day 2. We're in the first session of the day, and so that's a good morning and good afternoon as we're dispersed throughout the country. Thanks for taking the time to be here today. Our session this morning or this afternoon for the next hour is going to be focused on an overview of the post-award portion of the Koali Research Suite. So that's just a check to make sure that you're in the right place. So hi, my name is Beth Jensen. I'm a customer success manager on the research team. And so either I or someone on my team would be a person who would help you implement these modules and also help you continue to be successful in your use of them after you've gone live. So my email is here. You can also reach me through the Socio app. Please don't hesitate to be in touch after the session if you have follow-up questions, want more information, whatever it may be. I should mention too, I've been with Koali for about a year now, but I've been in research administration for 17 years. The first 10 years, I was at Cornell's Medical School, managing research administration systems. And then the last 7 years, I've been helping institutions select, implement, and use electronic research systems. So just for some background here, this is a graphic of the Koali Research Suite. So we can see over here in this section are the compliance modules. We're not going to be getting into them today, but certainly lots of sessions on them throughout Koali Days. That's where we're looking at conflict of interest and commitment, and then the protocol options of IRB, IACUC, and now IBC. And then dashboard and reporting, which we really show in the middle here, and that's because that's available across the suite. That's the in-app reporting options that we provide within the suite. And so I'll be showing that to you briefly today. And then on the sponsored program side of the house, this first column has to do with the pre-award portion of the suite. I actually did a session on that yesterday morning. So if you didn't catch that, those recordings will be up later this week, and you can take a look at that. Today's focus is on post-award. And then our newest portion of the sponsored programs portion of the suite is export control. And there was a session on that yesterday as well. So you could always catch that recording later on if you didn't make it there yesterday. Now within the post-award modules, we of course have the award module and the sub-award module. And I'm actually going to cover negotiations briefly too. We sort of had to put it in one place on the graphic just so it didn't show up as if it was several things. But the negotiations module can be used in conjunction with post-award records just as easily as pre-award records. So I will be touching on that today as well. And so really the primary amount of our time today is going to be spent taking a look at a live demo. And then just so we don't have to come back to the slide at the end, just again want to thank you for being here and encourage you at the end of the session to review this in Socio. And I will mention that again later on too. All right. So here I have Koali up. This is the dashboard. And so what I'd like to do in our time together today is talk you through the dashboard with a specific view of how that works with the post-award portion of the system. And then take a look at starting a new record so you can get a sense of what that looks like, and then navigate us to a suite of, or kind of a family of records that I've staged ahead of time so we can take a look a little bit more quickly at the different kinds of information you can track within these post-award records. I would love to encourage people to ask questions along the way. If your question has to do with what we're looking at that moment, please don't hesitate to take yourself off mute and ask that question. If your question isn't exactly what we're, in the section that we're talking about at the moment, or if you're just more comfortable, please feel free to put those questions into the chat as well. And we'll try to respond to those throughout the session, both in writing and then pause a couple times and take a look at those too. So really whatever you're more comfortable with, take yourself off mute or make that comment. Okay, so here on the dashboard, we can see our awards work in progress, subawards work in progress, and then down below negotiation. Certainly there are a lot more cards that can be activated on the dashboard, but I've turned all of those off for the moment just to help us really focus on the areas that we're looking at together today.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt already.
Yes.
I'm brand new at all this. I can't even find the dashboard. Can you help me?
Are you not able to see my screen?
I can see your screen, but I'm trying to follow along in my research portal on my own. Maybe that's not a good idea. Never mind. I'll just follow
Yeah.
the screen.
Okay, we could always follow up afterwards, but
Thank you.
sure. Yeah, so here is the dashboard, which is really sort of the home page of your application. And so the idea here is that we want to be presenting to people the records that they have access to see. Either they have edit access or just view access. And so what you're able to do is configure who at your institution actually sees these different topical cards. So by card, I mean the subawards, awards, and then the negotiation down below. So that's all permission based. You can determine who actually has access to having each card appear. And then even to refine that further, every individual person is going to see this show hide cards button that they can open up. And maybe they just don't want to clutter up their screen with subawards. They can just individually turn that card off, even just temporarily, to really just focus in on what it is they want to take a look at, and then with the ability to turn it back on again with just a simple click. So that's something everybody can do locally for themselves. And then also the individual records that show up within each card are going to depend completely on whether or not the person who has logged in has access to edit or view them. So you can imagine a subaward administrator is going to potentially see every subaward that's currently in progress, whereas the PI that is funding a subaward would only see those that they have, that are related to them. Same thing with the awards, same thing with the negotiations down below. So the idea is to provide transparency, to show people what's relevant to them, while also providing the security so we're not showing people things that aren't in their purview. And we can see here too, as we look through these cards, we've got some additional information available on some pills. In this case, we've got compliance information. And so what you can see is that if you click on that, you can see some really basic information about anything that's been entered on the compliance tab within, in this case, an award, without actually having to navigate into the award and take a look at that detail. But if you do want to open the record, you just click on it and it's going to take you right there. Similarly, down in the negotiation section, we have the ability to drill in to see a high-level overview of the different activities that have been logged onto that negotiation record. And anything that has a follow-up date that's in the past, and this demo record is pretty far in the past, you're going to see an alert symbol right here, and it's also going to show up as overdue. And so the idea is that we want to help encourage people to do the follow-up that they've said that they want to do, and to make that really obvious right here from the dashboard. And then because this is so much, the dashboard is so focused on things that are a work in progress, once you've finalized a record, it's going to drop off the dashboard. And then if you open it up to do another edit, it will show up there again. So this really is about managing work that is currently in progress and is most likely to need attention. So that's the, oh, and I should mention too, you have a lot of abilities here to do different kinds of sorting and filtering, which is particularly nice if you have an awful lot of records showing up in your card, if you've got access to a lot of different information, to be able to really focus in on what's of the greatest interest to you. But of course, not everything in Quali is going to be currently in progress, which is, of course, a good thing. This is really has a specific purpose of keeping you focused on what you're working on. But for doing a search to find a record that is really in any status within the system, this search records page is really helpful. It does perform searches throughout the entire application. We end up kind of calling it the Omni search because it really does take a look at everything. And so to use this, you can just type some information directly into this text box, or if you really want to focus in on a specific piece of information, let's say we want to search by sponsor, you can select that or start typing, and it's going to give you that criteria. And now when I do a search, I know that I'm searching specifically on the sponsor field, and in this case for the sponsor of NIH. And you can clear searches, add more search criteria. You know, the idea is to give you lots of flexibility to find what it is that's important to you. And then of course, within the search result, you've got document numbers that are the links into the records. So you would click on one of these links to open up the record that you want to see. And you can really do quite a bit of manipulation right here on your screen to give you access to the information that you need. So if I click on the show hide columns, it's going to show me all the different data that's available to me to search by within this page. And so let's say I want to bring CFDA number front and center as part of my search result. So to do that, I'm going to click on that field to make it appear. And then what I also want to do, just to really make it easy on myself, is to drag it up here to the front. I'm going to put it in position 2. And now when I save that, we can see that CFDA is now appearing right here in position 2. And of course, I can go through and make whatever changes I want to make for myself to control what it is I'm seeing in my search result.
So I want to ask you a question real quick before you go to
Yes.
the next step. I have been trying to change these columns moving around and use our account number, because that's how we identify grants. And every
Okay.
time I do that and I save and I log out, come back in, it defaults to what the default is. I'm not. Are anybody having a problem with that?
I haven't heard of that. I know Kat's on the call. Kat, have you?
I have not either. I would, if you're experiencing that, I would submit that as a support ticket.
Sure. I've tried a few ways. I've tried to actually physically log out. So, you know, not just close out the screen, to physically log out, and then I can go back in. And when I go back in, it goes back to this format, which obviously is not helpful to me. That makes me just go to the next section rather than just search anywhere.
Yeah, I would definitely submit that as a support ticket, because I believe mine, as well Bess's understanding, is that those selections should be remembered. So even if you log out, come back in, whatever you selected last should be what's retained here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. And in addition to your support ticket, you know, I just took a note of that too, and we'll look into it more. But our support team may actually be aware of an issue that that Kat and I just haven't run across yet. Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. Oh, the last thing I wanted to mention on this page is that we have a relatively new feature here too that allows you to export as CSV. And so this was a customer request, and we're quite happy to be able to provide this now. So the idea now is that not only can you search and refine your list to actually, identify the record you want to open, but if for some reason you want to use this as sort of somewhat of a reporting tool, you can search for what it is that you're looking for and then do that export, and then you'll have a CSV outside of the system that you can manipulate further and use as you need to.
Hey, Bess, this is
Yes.
Kat. I've been using that export, but the problem is it doesn't, if there's more than one page of records, it only exports the page that you're on. Is there a way that we can make that export like the other searches do, where you can get to the bottom and then export?
That's a known issue, and it's not a known issue, but a no feature gap that the team is working on. So you will be eventually able to export everything from all pages.
Okay, thanks, Kat.
And actually, it's great timing that you just asked that question because one of our engineers, Omar, is on our session today, and he is the person who has made this happen for us. And so you just confirmed for him the phase 2 that we already have planned to fill that gap that you just talked about.
Thanks, Omar. I know our users already are really appreciating the export feature. This is Carolyn.
That's terrific. All right, terrific. So just to show a couple more things that are over here that are part of the dashboard. The next is this common tasks section. And this is where you can do things, quite a few things over here on the left, like release some locks if you happen to have a locked record. But certainly this is also a really easy place where you can come to create a new record or do a search that is module specific. So if you just want to do an award search, just a negotiation search, just a subaward search, this is a good way to do that. You're ultimately going to see the same data here as through the Omni search. But again, sometimes you just really want to search by that specific module. So like any good software system, we're going to give you lots of different ways to accomplish roughly the same thing, but all with some slight differentiation to make them useful for different purposes.
This is
And so
Carolyn again.
yes.
I just want to mention on the search awards, one of the features that our users like that you can configure it is that you can see your awards and search records, and then you can display the proposal number so you can see all the development proposals and IPs that are connected to that award, and then can download that. They've made a lot of use of that.
Oh, terrific. That's great to hear. Thank you. And then I should just mention too, because I've set this up ahead of time to be focused on our post-award session today, I did actually disable the pre-award modules. So it's just to give you a sense of the fact that we can turn things off and on based on what it is you're implementing at any given time. The next is the links page. And I actually really like to pause on this for a moment because I really think this is part of what makes Kuali very special within our industry. And that's the high level of configurability that's available. If you really take a look through here, we have the ability to do configurations that are across the suite as well as that are module specific. And of course, this gives you the ability to create a pretty custom experience for your institution without us needing to do custom code for each institution. And of course, getting away from custom code means that the expense is lower. We're reducing bugs because everybody's got on the same code base. But again, you've got that ability to have your custom values and lists, custom parameter settings that give you behaviors that you want. And often when we're developing new features, we're looking for ways to create parameters or other kinds of options around them. So institutions have choices about how they implement certain features or how they work for them. So I just think it's a really important part of the system that is just important to mention and keep in mind. Then as I work my way down the list, we get into the reports area. And of course, you not only want to put data into a system, but you need to get it back out again in order for it to be useful. And so this is our in-app reporting option. And what I'm going to do here is just open up an award report to give us a sense of what this looks like. And I'm actually going to collapse over here so we can see a little bit more. So this is one of the many reports that we provide out of the box. And you can see here that as you take a look at this, we've got some nice graphical interfaces to display the data, as well as a bunch of filters off to the side. And the goal is really to provide lots of different ways to extract the data with really as few reports as possible, and really relying on those filters for you to be able to control what's being seen. So for example, with these award status filter, you can really decide what status or group of statuses do I want to be able to see right now, and which ones do I want to turn off. And the same thing with all those different filters. Then as you mouse over these graphics, you're able to really take a look at higher level detail. And as I go down here, we've got a few other reports that appear. And then, I do think it's important too to know that it is possible to download this information. So you might open up a report, change the filters. Maybe you want to change the status or the units involved or the years or months or whatever time period you want to report on, and then ultimately export that to an image. And then you've got this really nice graphic that's all ready to go to stick into a PowerPoint or an annual report or whatever you might want that for. So you don't have to take the data out of the system, massage it separately, and then create some sort of image for yourself. That's all taken care of really quite quickly right here within our reporting option. And then the other thing is that, sometimes those graphics are exactly what you want. You really need a visual representation of your data. And sometimes what you really need is just a table of the details. And that is an option as well. So if I go to the data section and click on the same report over here, we can now see the information that's actually behind the table we just looked at earlier. And with this one, probably the most useful thing here is the ability to download that to CSV, similar to what we saw in the search results within the application itself. Because, as much as you are able to do reporting within the system, sometimes you really just need an editable file downloaded that you're able to then, combine with other data or do whatever you might need to do with it afterwards. Any questions about reporting?
Hi, what is the expected permission level to create a dashboard? Is that like, what's the permissions to do this dashboard?
I'm actually going to see if Kat can help us out with that one.
Sure, yeah. So to create a dashboard, meaning to create a report and set up this dashboard for your institution, you need to have report designer access, which is an add-on service that our customers have the ability to purchase. All of our customers have access to the out-of-the-box dashboards, which is what Bess is showing right now. So that is available to everyone. And all of the reports are available to everyone. And the access to these dashboards and to these out-of-the-box reports is behind the permission. And actually, it's actually a role, and the role name is Run Global Reports. So anyone who has a Run Global Reports role assigned is going to see the out-of-the-box dashboards, out-of-the-box reports. To create your own, that requires the report designer access, which again, your institution may already have, or it's something that if an institution is interested in, we can have additional conversations around what the cost is to enable that in your environment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what I did now is I navigated to an award that's been set up ahead of time. So we can take a look at the details of how the data actually gets tracked within Kuali. And so let's see here. I'm going to open up this award record to get started. And let's just take a look to orient ourselves to the page here. So as is the case, consistently throughout Kuali, we have a number of tabs up here across on the top of the page and some summary information up here in the corner. The first page is going to have some foundational information about the award or subaward or proposal, whatever it is you're managing at the time. And then everything else is drilling into more detail that is topical. We, of course, have our Medusa at the end that I'll be clicking on a few times throughout our time together today that helps you quickly identify linked records and jump between them. So one of the first things that I think is important to make sure that we all know about an award is that you do have the ability to link institutional proposals to an award in order to create a relationship between those two records. It's not necessary. You can implement award as a standalone module if you want to. You don't have to fund proposals in order to create an award. But what's really nice is that if you do have both of those in place, that you're able to search for and link the proposal here. And that's going to do a couple of things. First of all, it's going to actually change the status of the proposal to funded. And so you don't have to go back into that proposal record and change its status. And then what it will also do is take data out of the proposal and populate it into the award record. And that is, of course, going to reduce mistakes and give you some efficiency. But of course, once that data has been populated in, you can still go through and make edits to it, because we all fully recognize that what you've proposed and what gets funded are not exactly going to be the same thing. So you want that opportunity to make changes as you need to. And then by having a separate proposal and award record, you're still able to keep track of what was proposed versus what was funded. So if you ever want to be able to reference those two pieces of information, maybe you want to take a look at, what is the difference between what's been proposed and what's been funded, that data is available for that analysis. So as I look down here further into the record, we can see our unique number that's been assigned by the system and some information that we've entered about our lead unit, the current status, the project. I'm actually going to click the edit button so we can create a new version and see what this looks like in an editable state. So I'm actually on version 8 here. And so it's important to know that every time an award record is finalized and then edited again, it's going to create a new version. And that is going to give you an audit trail, a history of the award, so you're able to take a look at how that award has changed over time. So, of course, we've talked about these configurable lists, and nearly every time in the application, when you see a dropdown or one of these little lookup icons, that's a signal to you that that is a configurable list. And so you would have control over what those values would be. And of course, that's a big part of an implementation, is talking through what it is you want to track, making sure that it's got a logical home within the system. And then, of course, teaching you how to continue to maintain those configurable values going forward. I did want to mention too, we are connected to via an API to CFDA information. So that information is all updated. And so as new CFD numbers are created, those will be available to search by. There's nothing that you need to do to make that happen. The subaward section, if you just implement the award module and not the subaward module, there is a place where you can just very simply track the institutions that you are subbing out to and the dollar amount that they're getting. So, not a lot of information, but, definitely that really high level, basically who is the subrecipient and what is the dollar amount. But if you also implement the subaward module, that it's a really powerful place where you can track details about your subrecipients. And you can even put in data that's needed in a subaward agreement and then print to PDF to be able to create an agreement, be further edited and routed for execution. And so what we can see down here are actually the linked records to the actual subaward records for these two subrecipients. And I've got links here that say open subaward, so I can navigate directly to those subaward records right from this page. Or of course, I can do the same thing from Medusa. Both links go to the same page. And a little bit later on in the demo, we'll take a look at a subaward record as an example. Sponsor templates can be a really big time saver. The idea here is that if you have a number of awards that have some of the same attributes, so maybe they have the same terms or the same reporting requirements or the same list of contacts, a sponsor template can be created that groups together that common information and then can be applied whenever you encounter an award that needs to be created that shares those attributes. And then as is consistent throughout Kuali, once you apply a template, you can always go in and make adjustments. So maybe you've got an award that's 80% in alignment with one of those templates you've created. It still may be worth your while to apply the template and then just adjust the 20% that's different rather than have to enter all of that duplicative information by hand. Well, actually, I never mind when an error comes up in a demo because I think it's a good opportunity to talk for a minute about the fact that we do have errors and warnings throughout the system. And the idea there is that we want to reduce the amount of time when people just need to know what they need to do, and instead have these prompts within the system to help people enter the information that's necessary. And one of the things that is necessary is that every time you create a new version of an award, you need to assign a transaction type. And this can be really helpful for basically your archaeology into this project and for your reporting, so you know roughly why you actually created that new version. What is it that triggered somebody to go back into this award to make an edit? And so our transaction type is right here. Let's say that there was a date change. So I'm going to pick something from that list. I think we have some pretty relatable options in there out of the box, but again, this is a configurable list. So we would work with you to determine what should be on this list for you. Now we get into things like contact pages, and this is where you can track things like key personnel. And if you are also using our COI module, then you're able to actually view some high-level disclosure information in here for these people. And of course, track any other additional personnel on the project, in addition to both unit contacts, sponsor contacts, and any central administration contacts. The commitments tab is all about being able to track cost share and rates and pre-award authorizations. So we've got a place here where, again, these kinds of details can be tracked. And as is the case throughout the award module, if this information was entered in the proposal that was used to fund it, you would have that data populate into these sections. And then, of course, you can adjust them as you need to. I'm going to skip over the budget for just a minute. We'll come back to that in a minute. The payments, reports, and terms page, I think, is really interesting. Some institutions that implement Kuali don't actually track any of this information, and some institutions use this page widely. So adoption really varies. And a lot of that is because the line between pre-award and post-award is pretty different just about everywhere. And so you're really looking at, whose responsibility is it to keep track of this information? And so we would work with you to determine what was going to be useful to you and what's not. We don't want anyone to implement a section just because it exists. We want to make sure that you are implementing areas of the application that are really meaningful to you. And this page is very powerful for the institutions that choose to implement it. So this report section is an example. You're able to set up the different kinds of report classes or categories that you want to be able to track. And then within that, what are the different kinds of reports that fall into those categories or classes? And so we're able to set up for you, a configurable list of what's meaningful to you into this list, and then also some corresponding frequency options, with the idea then being that the system can generate for you a list of due dates And at this point, you can now set up, who is going to be, who's responsible for preparing each, what is the current status, what is the due date. Kuali is going to populate the due date for you anytime there is a frequency that can be used to populate that. But of course, again, you can change it as you need to. And then we also have some notifications that can be used to send information to people to let them know that an upcoming report deadline is just around the corner. And those can be sent 30, 60, or 90 days prior to the deadline, as well as right after something is overdue. So again, if this is something that is important to your sponsored programs office, it's really powerful functionality that you can lean on in here to make sure that you are compliant with your reporting requirements.
Bess,
Yes, please.
this is Amy Taylor at Southern. I have a quick question about the report tracker. So the filling out the terms and reports, this area of the Kuali Award does in fact give us a very rich list of what's coming up in the future and what can we do with it, but it's cumbersome to extract and use the report tracker. And we can't actually, I don't believe we can update any of this information without actually opening the award for editing. Is there anything on the future roadmap about making that report tracker easier to use and to update?
So I'll just add something. I'll do a plug for my session tomorrow on sponsor programs configuration.
Okay.
I'm going to go over a new functionality, new features we released a couple of months ago, I would say, for limited award editability, and maintaining these reports without having to edit the award is one of the things that feature supports. So basically what we've done is we've created a number of permissions, and there are some parameters that support you granting access to users to be able to edit certain pieces of the award without having the edit access to the entire award. So I'll be going over that tomorrow. And again, the report section is one of those areas where, a key personnel, a PI could have access to maintain on their own without having edit access to the entire award.
Oh, okay. I'll look for your session tomorrow then.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very timely. I'm not aware of plans to do some of the other things you're talking about, Amy, but I think it's definitely good feedback to have. And we'll pass that along to our product manager so they can keep that in mind. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay. So of course, this compliance tab is going to be showing up consistently throughout the application. And, maybe something that was pending at time of proposal has now been approved. And so you can, of course, add, delete, modify as you need to on this page. For anybody who came to the export control session that I did yesterday, if this was configured to have export control on, which this environment isn't, but I want to mention it anyway, even though I can't show it. So if it was configured to have the export control module on, you'd be able to pick that from this list. And when you picked export control, you could then affiliate that export control record to the compliance entry here, or you could actually even kick off a new export control record right here from the compliance page. So it's some new richness that we've recently added to the compliance page in the event that you do implement the export control module as well. Supplemental info, I think, is really powerful and important to pause on. This, of course, shows up throughout the research suite, and it gives you a place to be able to add custom data collection that's important to you. So we've got a couple different categories here with different kinds of data collection. These are, of course, just examples. This page comes blank when you first implement, and we would work with you to identify any data you wanted to collect that wasn't naturally already part of the record and create those fields for you here. Another real powerful element of this is that when things come along somewhat unexpectedly, like, you know, COVID and CARES Act funding and all of these kinds of things, you know, you don't have to look for us to create new fields to track this information. You can very quickly and easily create a custom data field or set of fields to track that information. And then you can actually inactivate that later on if you don't want it to show up any longer. So it's a really good way to track, you know, those things that come up very quickly and may be really important for the short term and then will eventually fade away. Recovery Act funding was another great example. And that was something that a lot of institutions tracked on supplemental info as well. And then, of course, we've always got these sections where you're able to make comments and add attachments, add notes. So just as an example, I've got a bunch of attachments in here. And the way that we're consistently providing you information throughout Kuali is that we're going to track for you, you know, when was that attachment uploaded and who did it. So that comes in automatically. Then you're able to configure your list of attachment types and select from that list, type in a description in the event that you'd like to describe it, and then actually upload that attachment and be able to view it from here. And you can see here, I've got some, you know, some Word docs, some PDFs, some spreadsheets. So really any standard kind of document is going to work. So another thing that I think is awfully important within our award system is the ability to have a hierarchy. Some institutions just keep everything at the parent level, and that works perfectly well, depending on your needs. That may be all that an institution needs. But some institutions utilize the hierarchy, and that can provide a lot of richness in your data collection. So the hierarchy is basically a way to break out aspects of your award into smaller pieces. Some institutions will use hierarchy to create a separate record for each year of a multi-year award. Some institutions will use hierarchy to break out different accounts. So if you have, you know, maybe different investigators, different departments managing different parts of an award, it may be helpful to have that into the hierarchy. My example here is just a parent with children, but we support children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and, you know, basically as deep as you may want to go. Although I think most institutions tend to stay at, you know, 2 or 3 levels deep, just so you're not creating a lot of administrative burden while still being able to do the data collection that you need. But the idea here is to be able to create these kind of sub-records within an award record that let you distribute the award, again, as is meaningful to you. Actually, let's take a brief look at the budget, and then I'm going to jump over to a subaward record. So the budget in award is quite similar to what's in proposal development, and even to the degree that you are able to actually import a proposal budget that is part of this awards family into the award record. And actually, I need to jump into one of my children to show this to you. Here we go. So this record has a budget already set up, so we can take a look at what that looks like once it's been entered. So here's our award budget. Just to take a look at a few features, you know, we've got the ability to set what the under recovery rate or the F&A rate and the under recovery rate are going to be. And of course, that's going to be tied then to the pre-configured rates that are loaded in the system, and with your ability to override them on a budget by budget basis. And we've got a place down here where we're able to see some really high level information about our award budget. So I really do think one of those nice things about Kuali is that we load in for you ahead of time and then teach you how to maintain going forward what all of your standard rates are. But then you do have that ability to change the applicable rate for your given budget, because of course we don't always get our standard rate on things, and there are so many exceptions. And this way you're able to make those changes as you need to. And then the budgeting is primarily done either by budgeting personnel or non-personnel on the different tabs, with of course the big difference between the two being that the fringe rates get applied to personnel. So very similar to our proposal budgeting, you are going to create a pick list of the people who are going to be budgeted, and then you've got the ability to actually budget them down below in categories as needed. So you've got this ability to do detailed budgeting on a personnel basis, and then on a non-personnel basis as well. So you're able to budget in detail those different categories. And certainly too, the ability to track in detail any cost share or under recovery. And by under recovery, we mean that if the F&A rate on the project is lower than your standard rate, we will calculate for you what the unrecovered F&A is. That's the difference between your standard rate and the actual rate. So certainly a lot more we could potentially cover in the budget, but just that high level overview to help us get a sense of what's in there. So I think just to make sure I don't run out of time, I'm going to jump over to a subaward. We'll look at that briefly, and then we'll also take a look at a negotiation record. And actually for that, I'm going to jump back over to my parent because that's where I have most of my records tracked. So I do just want to put in a plug. I really like the way that we handle these hierarchy actions. So you're able to very quickly jump into, from one part of an award into another, which is definitely helping us jump back and forth today. So back into our pending version of this award. So if we take a look at Medusa, we can see that we've got quite a number of different records that are related to each other here. We have the proposal that funded the award, and then I actually have a couple of subaward records and some negotiations in there as well. So let's open this subaward 47. And so here's where we are really able to track some very detailed information about individual subawards. And so these are when you are subbing money to a subrecipient. If you are going to be the subrecipient, you would just enter that as a standard award, but you would track both the sponsor and the prime sponsor to keep track of the fact that you are the sub. So here in this subaward record, again, I'm going to just click this edit button down here so we can see this editable. You're able to track an awful lot of detailed information, including some information about your institution, as well as information about both the person and the institution that is the subrecipient. And as we go down here more, you can see that there's a place to keep track of any FAFATA reporting that is part of this subaward. You can link in the award that is the funding source. And so we can see here that because I've linked in this award, I've got this open award link. It's by creating the relationship right here that we're able to connect the award to the subawards that award is funding. And the ability to keep track of both contacts and closeout requirements. This financial tab is where you're going to keep track of updates. In fact, we even call it history of changes. So every time the dates or dollars change in what you are providing to your subrecipient, you can come in here and enter things like the effective date, the change to the obligated amount, the change to the anticipated amount, and other dates and relevant information. And you can even upload an attachment right here within that specific history of changes. So again, the idea is every time something changes with your relationship to your subrecipient, you come in here and just add that change into the system. If you're going to be giving them more money, you just enter that dollar amount. If you're going to be de-obligating money and taking some back, you would just enter that in as a negative number, and that's going to subtract from the dollar amount that you've already allocated to them. And we can see up here on top with these grayed out numbers, this is where those running totals are going to be presented. Again, we've got supplemental info, so you've always got the ability to track information that's relevant specifically to you if we can't find a good home for it other places. We also have this tab for template information, and anybody who deals with FTP subaward agreements on a regular basis, probably just scanning through this page, you can identify very quickly why we're collecting the information here. And that is because this information does map directly to those FTP forms. So this is, certainly optional data entry. It's really up to you about whether or not this is helpful to you. But if you do tend to generate FTP subaward agreements, what is awfully nice is that you can track that information here within the system, and then you can actually print to PDF. And we have a session in Quality Days talking about the recent enhancements that we've made to printing. And so we've basically created this print service that we are using ourselves in the generation of the new forms, and that you will also be able to use. Let's say you maybe have a standard agreement that you use that isn't an FTP agreement. Well, you can actually, if you have that as an editable PDF, that PDF can be mapped to the different data collection fields within Kuali, and then that could be added to this list, and you could actually, through the click of a button, very similar to what I'm doing right now, you could actually export a copy of your form with the data from Kuali in it. And the way that this exports is it actually is going to create for you an editable PDF. And so you can see here that, I can continue to edit this information. So if you don't actually want to track every piece of data in Kuali, you don't have to. You can track as much as makes sense for you. You can make additional edits here and then print this to PDF and then circulate this form for execution. So our goal is to, to really be building out this PDF tool to give you a lot of options beyond the FTP forms, to be able to extract the data that you're tracking in Kuali to actually create agreements that can be circulated.
Bess, if I may
Yes,
interrupt,
please.
where
Absolutely.
do those options, the templates, where do they come from? Do you have to load them in configuration somewhere, or are they just there? Some of them out of the box, or?
So we do have a new set of forms that is coming out very soon. I'm not sure of the timing offhand. It's possible one of my other colleagues on the call does know, but our plan is to send out an announcement when we're ready to release them and to let people know if there's anything that you need to do in order to enable them. There are a couple of parameters that are involved in turning on the new templates.
Right, and we maintain these templates, so they are available out of the box. So it is something that will be available in your environment when those are released. I don't believe customers don't have to upload them into a maintenance table or anything like that. Again, we push that out to all of our customer environments. Again, for all of the SaaS customers. If you're on-prem, there might be some steps you have to take to get these forms.
Yeah, that's the part I think I'm missing, because we are on-prem and I've been trying to work with this. So those are the steps maybe I need that have been missing.
Yeah, I would, if you haven't already done so, you may have already submitted a support ticket. If not, submit a support ticket and we'll get one of the engineers to help you, figure out what's missing to get these. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, great.
I have a question as well.
Please.
Will new PDF forms be able to feed into like Adobe Sign, where we would use them to route and get signatures on them? Are they compatible? Do you know, have you tested against that interface?
I don't know yet. I know that the FTP forms are our sort of first trial on this PDF tool that we're building. I don't know yet of the full breadth of what this functionality is going to be provide. So we'll have to follow up on that to get more info.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. And then just so we don't skip over negotiation, even though we've just got a couple minutes left, I do think it's important to just take a quick look at this. The negotiation module can be really helpful for all kinds of things that need to be, to have different activities tracked. And certainly subawards, when you're subbing out, that's a great example of something that could have some, extensive tracking that you want to be able to do. And so the idea here is that you can keep track of the current status of the negotiation, the start date, once it's changed to being completed or suspended, the end date, which is going to populate to the date you make that change, but you can always override it. The person who's doing the negotiation, the type of agreement, and then negotiations can be linked to awards, proposals, subawards, or they can be standalone. I think what's really powerful about the negotiation module is the fact that you're able to put information into one shared location, and then you can have some transparency as well. And particularly with, so many people working from home right now, the ability to share information, of course, has gotten harder. And so if you implement something like negotiation and use it consistently to keep track of how something is progressing, it can give you that one central accessible location. So you're not having to dig things out of an email or, reference something that's maybe in a paper file that's in the office that nobody can get to right now. So I think negotiation was a really powerful tool before, and it's become even more compelling to use during this time that we are working in such a distributed fashion. And the idea here is, of course, we've got that supplemental info that can be tracked, but then really the heart of negotiation is your ability to keep track of basically everything that happens to move something forward. What is, who was involved? What is it that happened? What are the dates? Is there a follow-up? And the ability to add attachments as you need to. And then as we saw earlier on the dashboard, the dashboard is going to keep presenting to you not only all the negotiations that are currently in progress, but it's going to alert you if you've reached a follow-up date to give you that trigger to come back in and make some changes and do your follow-up. So we are almost at time. I know we've covered quite a few things here. So I just wanted to check in and see if there were any other questions or comments that people had to share with us.
Yeah, I have one question.
Great.
So I know that this, I'm actually dealing with it right now. I have a sub-awardee that's a foreign vendor, foreign sub-award, but it's not a federal, the sponsor's not a federal award. So I really can't, I can, but I would have to greatly modify that FTP report to, or agreement to make sure that it matches. Is there a way where we can have kind of a sub-award agreement that's not federal, an FTP, or is that just something we have to create ourselves?
So that really is where we're headed with our new PDF tool, is that you would be able to, if you created a fillable PDF that would meet that need, we could work with you to map the data in Kuali to the fields in your document, and then it can be added to that drop-down list for your institution. And then you could generate that form for yourselves the same way that everyone would be able to do with the FTP PDF. So what you're describing is absolutely what we're working to support.
Because I'm right now, I guarantee you, I probably will not have another one of these for 5 years. But of course, it's the one that I'm struggling with. But that's
Sure.
fine. But do you know when this is going to be uploaded? The new forms are going to be uploaded. Do we have time?
I'm not sure of the timing right now. I know we had a, yeah, I'm not sure of the timing right now, but I can get back to you once we have some more of those details. And then I also know, Jessica on our support team, sends out notices when things, when big things are coming too. I'm not sure, Kat, if you happen to know the timing, but I'm not sure of it.
I don't. I know it's pretty early on. I think the whole development of the PDF tool, again, doing that with using that tool to build the FDP templates was sort of a first stab at it. But we're pretty early on with making that tool accessible to, customers and functional users to build their own PDFs. So yeah, we'll have to follow up to see what it looks like, where on the roadmap it sort of falls on.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments to share?
Bess, this is Pat. Quick question. You mentioned yesterday, I think it was in the, Casey mentioned it, that you're going to be doing an overhaul of award and proposal this year as part of the roadmap for Kawali. Did I hear that right? Are we planning to upgrade the modules themselves this year?
So I don't know that it's going to be this year. I don't know that Casey shared specifics around it, but that is on the roadmap. It as you probably suspect, the modules are pretty extensive and there's a lot to it. So it'll probably be an effort that starts this year, but it's going to probably continue for a couple of years. But yes, that is correct. Sponsor programs are on the roadmap to probably get a facelift, a significant facelift. So
okay. Okay, so we'll get plenty of notice on that before we'd have to do any upgrades or anything like that.
Of course, yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
Because that's a big one. Those are going to be big ones, and yeah, as you know.
Yep.
No, it's a great point. We definitely do not take that change lightly. For all of our sakes, it will need to be managed very carefully. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when is the PDF? When are you looking at that PDF tool being available for us? Is that second quarter, third quarter? Do you have any idea?
We don't at this time. That's something we have to follow up on.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know we've run a couple minutes over, but I appreciate everybody, coming and staying a little late if you were able to have this conversation. So yeah, thank you again for being here. And if anything else comes to mind afterwards, please don't hesitate to be in touch. We'd love to hear from you and hope the rest of the day goes well.